It's the last weekend of political campaigning before polling day. Sir Keir Starmer asks voters to give him a clear mandate to govern. Rishi Sunak speaks of his commitment to public service. It comes as Reform UK drops 3 of its candidates after reports they'd made offensive comments. Also on the programme tonight, volunteers join emergency services in Tenerife in a fresh search for the British teenager Jay Slater, now missing for nearly 2 weeks.
At Glastonbury, Coldplay are about to make history and headline here for a 5th time.
Against Slovakia. Hello, good evening. With just 5 days to the general election, party leaders have been out campaigning all day and into this evening. At an event in London tonight, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer warned that nothing had been decided, even though opinion polls suggest his party is on course to win. The Prime Minister visited a temple this evening, saying his Hindu faith guided him in his public service. He called the UK the world's most successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith community, and said we should all be uplifted by that. His comments came after Reform UK withdrew support from 3 of its candidates because of offensive comments they reportedly made. Our political correspondent Ben Wright has the latest.
The finishing line is in sight. We've had the manifestos, the pitches and promises. Now the campaigns are all about persuading supporters to get out and vote.
Change is possible. Most of all, they need to be convinced to vote for it, because change doesn't happen unless you vote for it.
Labour's leader Sir Keir Starmer has been rallying his party at an event in London this evening. There is a buzz within Labour, confident but terrified of complacency too. Far ahead in the opinion polls, but knowing it still needs to mobilise the party's voters. Rishi Sunak has been on the stump tonight too at a temple in West London. The Conservatives have spent the last few weeks defending the seats they currently hold and warning voters not to risk a change of government.
Education, hard work, family. Those are my values, those are your values, those are Conservative values.
Still having more fun than any other leader on the campaign trail, the Liberal Democrat's Ed Davey began his final tour of the country in Scotland.
We're here to win as many seats as we can, because if we have lots of Liberal Democrat MPs in the next Parliament, we will be able to get changes in our NHS and care system. We will be able to tackle the sewage scandal.
Meanwhile, the SNP leader said only his party would stand up to spending cuts at Westminster.
People will only get that if they vote for the Scottish National Party and elect a strong group of SNP MPs.
Welcome.
One thing that has united all party leaders today is fierce criticism of Reform UK.
This was a comedy act, but it was designed to hurt us, and sadly, some people believe it.
I've always been a Tory voter. What annoys me...
Nigel Farage has insisted a Reform UK canvasser racially insulting Rishi Sunak in an undercover report for Channel 4 was a setup. Channel 4 has again strongly rejected that claim, saying it was rigorous, impartial journalism. But last night, Mr Farage was also challenged about racist or offensive comments made by 3 of his candidates. The party now says they've been dropped.
You know, we've been running, as it were, to catch up with the electoral timetable. And it seems that we have made some mistakes, but we've, corrected those mistakes to the extent possible at this stage by dropping those candidates.
But as we speed towards polling day, this is not the sort of scrutiny Reform UK wants.
And Ben is with me. How significant is this, the idea of withdrawing support from 3 candidates?
It is significant, Jane. And Nigel Farage plunged into this election wanting to cause waves. He's hoping that he can mop up a lot of Conservative supporters in particular and establish Reform UK as a real force on the right of British politics. But the scrutiny of Reform's rank and file has left Mr Farage having to defend and explain the party's activists and candidates and its values. And I think what's changed in the last couple of days is the readiness of the Conservative Party to lay into Reform UK. I think at the start of the campaign, they were sort of tiptoeing around Nigel Farage, trying to ignore him, hoping he might go away while warning that Reform UK supporters would only help Labour win this election. That's changed. We're now seeing really strong condemnation of Reform UK from senior Tories, echoed by opposition parties too. Now, today, Reform UK complained to the Electoral Commission about that Channel 4 investigation, but the elections watchdog said it wasn't a matter for them. We don't know, of course, what effect, if any, this is going to have on Reform UK's support, but now Nigel Farage is battling the sort of attention he really doesn't want this close to polling day.
All right, Ben, thank you for now. Ben Wright. 7 people have been treated in hospital in County Durham after taking the sleeping medication Zopiclone, prompting concerns about a possible contaminated batch. Cleveland police say 6 of those admitted have since been discharged from North Tees General Hospital in Stockton-on-Tees. The force is also investigating the death of a man believed to have taken the drug. Joe Biden has insisted he has no intention of pulling out of the US presidential race after his poor performance in the TV debate with Donald Trump on Thursday. The New York Times newspaper, which has backed the Democratic candidate at every presidential election since 1960, has called on him to drop out, saying the party would have a better chance of winning in November with someone else. A fresh search has taken place today on Tenerife for the missing British teenager Jay Slater. Volunteers, including members of his family, helped look through difficult terrain. It is nearly 2 weeks since the 19-year-old was last heard from when he phoned a friend from a mountainous area. Our correspondent Nick Garnett sent this report from Tenerife.
Another day, another search. But an appeal for people to help out fell flat. Half a dozen volunteers joined in.
We need to rule out these areas and be sure that where we search, even though this has been done carefully in recent days, has been fully checked.
Remote and rugged, trying to find something on this land is as hard as it gets.
This is like a labyrinth, you know, a lot of bushes, very hard. In 1 kilometer, 1 square kilometer, it takes you can be there and you don't even see.
I have a son in the same age, so he's also 19, and I think that if something would happen to him, I would appreciate a lot if other people would help.
Jay Slater was last seen almost 2 weeks ago, walking up a hill away from the nearest village and into the countryside. As his phone ran out of battery, it registered his last location.
Jay got into trouble on one of these paths. He phoned a friend and said he was slipping around on the rocks. Then his phone pinged his location one last time, and then the battery ran out. Now, what happened next? The authorities firmly believe that they can find the answer to that by carrying out the searches time and again on the same areas of land.
Whether looking deep down in the ravines, high up in the mountains, through cacti and scrubland, they are pushing on to help find Jay. But as each search passes with no breakthrough, the hopes of the family to be reunited with their son are dashed once again. Nick Garnett, BBC News, in the Rural de Teno in Tenerife.
The record-breaking fell runner Joss Naylor has died at the age of 88. The sheep farmer from the Lake District took up running in 1960 and became known as King of the Fells because of the number of races he won. His commitment to the sport saw him awarded an MBE in 2007. Joss Naylor. Now, Coldplay are making history very soon at Glastonbury. They're about to become the first band to headline the festival 5 times. They are due on the Pyramid stage any time now, really. Katie Razzle is there for us amongst the crowds. Katie.
Jane, tens of thousands of us are crammed into this field. Most of us are going to have to crane our necks to even get a tiny sight of Coldplay on that stage. I have just heard, though, that Tom Cruise is here and he has a better view because he's on a viewing platform just to the side of the stage. So, you know, there's a difference between Tom Cruise and the rest of us, it turns out. But the anticipation here is immense. They should be on any second now. All day it's been building. We've been given these LED bracelets so that we're going to be able to be part of the kind of lighting rig of the show. They've built vast towers to accommodate the lasers that are going to be part of this performance. And there's all sorts of rumours swirling about what's going to happen. In 2016, Chris Martin duetted with Michael Eavis, who founded this festival. They sang My Way together. Will Michael Eavis be back on stage? Who knows? What we have heard, big rumours, that Coldplay are going to bring on an enormous number of artists tonight, because they really, really do know how to put on a show. The one thing I can guarantee, though, is tonight, right here, there is going to be the most enormous sing-along in this field, and it's going to start any minute.
Enjoy. Thank you very much, Katie Razzle there at Glastonbury. Of course, now let's find out about the latest in the Euros and all the day's sports news. That comes tonight from Lizzie Greenwood-Hughes. Hi, Lizzie.
Hello, Jane. Thank you. Good evening. England are getting ready for their first knockout match of Euro 2024. They'll play Slovakia tomorrow. More on that in a moment. But we now know that if they do win that game, then they will play Switzerland next after they stunned the defending champions Italy. Joe Linsky has the details.
They'd beaten the holders and they'd made it look easy. The first team in the last 8 have laid down a marker. From the against Slovakia or England. Joe Linsky, BBC News.
Well, England are busy preparing for that game against Slovakia tomorrow. Our sports editor Dan Roan reports from Gelsenkirchen.
England may have topped their group undefeated here, but for Gareth Southgate, so far these Euros have been a far from smooth journey. The manager's tactics heavily criticised after 3 underwhelming performances. The team booed off after their goalless draw against Slovenia. But now it's win or bust. He says his players can go up a gear.
Everybody knows that knockout football is jeopardy. Everybody knows that on a given day, an opponent can make it really tough for you. You know that the quality of the opposition left is high, and so it changes the mindset. It's about how far can we go.
Having received a favourable draw, England's quest to find their best form continued at their training base.
The group of players and staff who I absolutely love working with and think so much of, lead them through another, what could be another brilliant night.
Performance to match the high expectations that surrounded the team coming into this tournament.
Very boring, very one-dimensional. The manager's more worried about keeping clean sheets than scoring goals.
We can take anybody in Europe on, but we've got to play that forward-thinking game.
When England walk out here, there'll be much at stake. Win and their record under Gareth Southgate of reaching at least the quarter-finals of major tournaments will continue. But lose and their campaign will be over, along almost certainly with the tenure of their manager. Dan Rowan, BBC News, Gelsenkirchen.
Well, the other last 16 match today between host Germany and Denmark was interrupted by a huge thunderstorm, so they're only midway. Now, the young British sprinter Louis Hinchcliffe has earned a place at next month's Olympic Games after winning the 100 metres at the UK Athletics Championships in Manchester. Hinchcliffe is already the 6th fastest Briton in history, and now he'll get to represent his country in Paris. Max Verstappen is back on pole for tomorrow's F1 Austrian Grand Prix, comfortably qualifying ahead of Britain's Lando Norris in Spielberg. Cheered on by 40,000 Dutch fans, Verstappen also won the sprint race to bolster his already huge lead in the Drivers' Championship. England were totally dominant in both their Rugby League internationals against France today. The men won 40 points to 8 in Toulouse, whilst the women's side also put 8 tries past the French, but this time without reply. Wigan winger Anna Davis scoring twice in their 42-0 victory. And India are the new T20 World Cricket Champions. There are highlights on the BBC Sport website, but that's it from me. Back to you, Jane.
Thanks very much, Lizzie. Thank you. Before we go tonight, just a word about Laura's programme in the morning.
Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, in our last Sunday encounter of the campaign, politicians are still trying to fight for your vote. We'll be joined by Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, Labour, the Lib Dems, the SNP and Greens will be with us too. Whatever happens, history is about to be made. So don't miss it. See you on BBC One at 9.
But from us, the whole team here in the newsroom tonight, that is it from all of us. Enjoy Coldplay if you're watching. Good night.